I've been living in my new flat for a couple of months now, and I still don't know how to figure out how to film in this place. My desk is so far away from my window that I can't get any natural lighting to it. I have been filming so far with my phone propped up on the top of my coffee machine. And even then, I'm not thrilled about this lighting, but we're just gonna move with it. So it's still the new year, kind of. It was only a couple of weeks ago. And I've been away over the winter because I had exams studying for engineering maths, second year of university. It was interesting, and I was thinking, to mark the new year, I'm going to do like a last now next almost with my writing of gonna go and do an overview of my previous projects, what I'm currently working on, and possibly what I might be working on in the future. Partially because I'm always ranting about writing, and then I never actually rant about what I write or what I'm going to write. So this is kind of to remedy that. So I currently have 3 books out. 2 of them are part of a duology, one's a standalone. I'll kind of be going in chronological order. It makes sense for the duology to be paired together, and I've released the first book first. So we're going to do that, and then we'll just cover the standalone plus some other things. Okay, so on my 18th birthday, I published my first book, which was The House of Hidden Miracles. I came up with the idea, I kid you not, when I was 11, and please don't fault me for that. Like, it sounds, I'm aware of how sketchy that sounds when I say it. And I was writing it basically for 7 years, and it's a mystery setting a boarding school for geniuses that used to be home to a Victorian family that was very, like, aloof and mysterious, that randomly disappeared one night in the 1880s. And one of the students, Ivy, finds a diary in her dorm room one day and decides to investigate why they actually disappeared. Now, if I'm being completely honest, I wrote The House of Hidden Miracles fully intending it to be a standalone. I had the story planned. I had been researching it for years. I went to, I kid you not, so many, I paid for my own National Trust membership at like 16 because I went to so many manor houses to figure out like how to write this book. I don't know if this makes sense, but I fully intended it to be a standalone, and then I published the book, and I was like, I've included everything I wanted to include. It was not like I cut something out that I regretted, but I was like, I feel like the story's not finished. I feel like there's actually a lot more to talk about, and thus The Land of Lost Souls was born. Obviously, I'm not going to go as in-depth with The Land of Lost Souls as I did with The House of Hidden Miracles, just because, spoilers, but basically The Land of Lost Souls kind of goes into the history of the village that outcasted the family, let's say, and then also, you know, expanding on the modern day characters and where they are with relationships and getting into university and stuff like that. The Nightshade duology is also a pretty, like, in my opinion, pretty good, like, rivals to lovers. It's somewhat, I wouldn't call this a romantasy mystery. I would call it a mystery with fantasy elements that has a romantic subplot, but the subplot, I do like it. Anyway, between the 2 books in the Nightshade duology, I released a standalone called Memoriam, which I think I came up with the idea back in 2020. It went through many iterations. A lot of them ended up a lot of the ideas I came up with Memoriam ended up actually going into my show, Chronicles of the Isles. So it's been in many iterations, it's evolved. Anyway, Memoriam is about a girl who inherits a hotel from her mother that she vaguely remembers visiting as a kid but no specific details, and she hasn't been in nearly a decade until she arrives, and she realizes that she might have been there a lot more recently than she thought, she just can't remember. And also the hotel actually might be in the afterlife. Memoriam was actually very fun to write. It took me writing the bulk of it took me nearly a year. Mostly, I locked myself in a cabin in the woods of Pennsylvania to write Memoriam. It sounds insane. Maybe it comes across like that in the book, however, it clearly worked. Memoriam was also a good opportunity to do what I love doing in books, apparently, which is write about random historical eras. There has not been a single project, apparently, where I haven't done that. Like, House of the Hidden Miracles has flashbacks to the 1800s. Memoriam has flashbacks to so many different historical eras because we have ghosts, essentially. And then another project that I'll talk about in a second, the Jane Doe Diaries, is a time travel project. So I clearly like a good bit of history. Speaking of which, now we're on to what is my current goings on writing-wise, what's currently going ahead, which is my short story series, the Jane Doe Diaries, which is actually my most popular series at the moment, which is a short story series about a time traveller who has been travelling for so long that she's actually forgotten who she is and needs to keep track of it all using diaries. The only problem is the first one's gone missing, so she actually doesn't know her own name. Jane Doe Diaries is actually a bit of a passion project for me. It's completely free to read on my Ko-fi. I don't sell these. It's also quite like episodic. Each story has its own self-contained thing, but there's threads that run across them. I'm not going to say too much about that because there's only 2 out at the moment, but I have plans. However, some small details about the first 2 that are out. The first one is Jane and her 2 friends travel to a futuristic museum just to get trapped there because they realise, oh, what is the perfect exhibit for a museum? It's a time traveller. And then also the second one is a bit of a Groundhog's Day time loop situation involving Tudor court in height of the Anne Boleyn era. I'm currently in the process of editing story 3 for the Jane Doe Diaries. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it comes out next month. I'm not gonna commit to that. This isn't an official announcement, but maybe. And then also I am writing story 4, which might be my favourite one. Yeah, I'm very excited. Anyway, in terms of what is coming next for me, you may have seen this if you watch my shorts or my TikToks. I currently have about 7 different ideas for what I want to write for my next book, and I am undecided, and I am having people vote, basically, on what I write next, because I am so indecisive, I'm not going to come to a conclusion by myself. So here's 7 possible books that I might write in the future, or I might write all of them, let's be honest. Okay, so number 1 is Project Immortal, which is the one I've been writing for the longest. I've had it in my head for a few years now, which is exploring basically just the concept of immortality, but it's about 5 people who randomly wake up one day and they cannot die, basically. And it takes place over 2,000 years, and how their relationships evolve, and, you know, disputes and relationships and stuff like that. And them realizing, actually, it's very hard to avoid someone when they literally, you live forever and you're stuck on the same world with them. Okay, another one I've been playing around with the idea of is, I'm just calling it Project Forest for now, which is kind of like a dark fantasy, dark fairy tale vibe about like stories that you get told as a kid, that like cautionary tales that you get told as a kid that you're meant to like apply when you become an adult, go into the real world, whatever you want to call it, versus what actually is reality, and realizing that actually things aren't just as black and white as that. The only hesitations I have about this one is that I feel like dark versions of fairy tales are very like, it's been done before, so it's trying to find like a balance of like that vibe and not have it be something that's like been done 1,000 times before, which I am aware. Fantasy, just as a genre, very oversaturated. So I'm fighting a losing battle already. Okay, so another one is what I'm calling Project Devious. I feel like I'm going to change the work in progress name for this, but for now I'm calling it that, which is a Rivals to Lovers, where usually with Rivals to Lovers, it's set in a high school and it's 2 people competing academically, usually for a spot in a prestigious university or something like that. I want to write a story about after they've already gotten into the university and they go and they realise that there's not really a point in being rivals anymore, because in university Academics is very different. It's more just like you either do well or you don't. It's not about doing better than other people necessarily like it is in high school. And then them coming together and realizing actually they missed out on a lot of stuff in high school, and they make a bucket list to go and do it all together and maybe fall in love in the process. Okay, now this one I think is just inspired by the fact that I really like Dungeons and Dragons, and I know this is going to be a bit cliche, bear with me. A story that's set around a group of friends and their Dungeons and Dragons characters, and it's dual POV. Hear me out, hear me out. Because usually I feel like this has been done before. I mean, literally just the show Dungeons and Dragons, also kind of Stranger Things. Not really. But it's usually centered around, like, you know, tweens, preteens, like 13, 14-year-olds. I actually want to do a group of friends that are doing their last Dungeons and Dragons campaign before they go off to college, jobs, university, stuff like that. And it be the tension of like the unspoken elephant in the room of this is probably going to be their last game of Dungeons and Dragons together. Okay, this one's like the least fleshed out idea out of like the list of ideas I have, but I've always wanted to write a witch book. It is on my bucket list. It will happen at some point in my life. It just depends when. But I feel like it'd be really interesting to do a witch book that's like focusing on the element of witches that have since kind of like faded out of storytelling because it's not as glamorous as modern day witches usually are. The only like example I can really give is The Witches by Roald Dahl. It's the only, like, unless it's very like cartoony, the only depiction of witches where they're not like seductive women. I want a middle ground between that. I don't know what the middle ground of that is, but I'll figure it out. Now finally, this last one is probably actually going to end up being a short story as opposed to a book, but a story about someone, you know, writing a story and posting it online and then it blowing up in a couple of days and now having to deal with fandom culture. I feel like this is something that already exists. I just don't know what that is. But this one's dangerous because I feel like that when this has been done in the past, but it's usually not with like stories, it's with other stuff. It's usually written by people who are like respectfully don't understand social media and fandom culture. So I want to come at it from a different perspective. Anyway, that is me ranting for God knows how long about things that I've wrote in the past, things that I'm currently working on, things that I might work on in the future. Please, please, please let me know your thoughts on all of the work in process ideas, because I would love to hear them. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this, or I don't know, at the very least, have now got motivation to write, because do not end up in a situation like I am where you have like 6 ideas that you need to choose between. Yeah, I'll see you in the next one.